Hello and welcome. I am back with another video on plants. This time we are going to talk about propagation. What are some of the key plants that I have been able to propagate myself from the comfort of my home? So come with me to this particular journey. Da-dum, da-da! Oh, and by the way, before we get into plants, look at these beautiful flowers. Don't they look good? I mean, these ones. Let me just show you. So, I got these from the plant shop that helps me access all these beautiful plants that I've been talking about, and these are just beautiful. Just look at these. So most of my vases have actually broken down. I don't know what happens. I either kick them, drop them, or something just tends to happen. So I used one of my, it's not a mason jar, but it's one of the jars that I use for storage of cereals and things like that. And why am I using it? Because as I said, I've lost most of my, clear vases, and I'm left with, the colored ones. I have some mustard ones, I have some green ones, and yeah, I just like to see this sometimes. So these are some chrysanthemums, right? Pretty. Absolutely pretty. And the flowers, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like roses and all, these are the kind of plants that you buy, and they survive for a very long time. When I mean long time, it's even for a month, as I'm told. So now let's talk about plants. One of my favorite plants is the Maranta. And if you've seen in one of my previous videos, this particular plant was, and still is, one of my favorite plants that I purchased. And this particular one, I got it from a shop at Yaya Center, for those in Kenya. For those not in Kenya, you can get this from any of your garden centers within where you are, or a plant shop, I guess. And it's a beautiful plant, as you can see. Absolutely beautiful. It has these colored, leaves, and when it came initially, it was just growing round, so extending outward, and not, there was not much going on, at the top. So what did I do? I did cuttings, and if you'll be able to see, you're seeing something that is trying to dry out here. This is part of some of the cuttings that I made. There's a fresh cutting that I made over, where is that? Yeah, over here. I don't know, will it focus? Yeah, so this is a cutting that I just did a couple of days ago, around midnight actually, because I felt that it was beginning to have roots growing out, and I wanted to just propagate it and plant it. So once I propagate, once I make cuttings from the mother plant, this mother plant, I just put those cuttings in a clear jar. It could be very small, it could be big, based on how I feel, or the particular clear containers that I have. This was just a jar that had Nutella, and I recycled it, washed it up, and now it's my propagation container. So the Marantas, or the prayer plants as they're commonly called, come originally from Brazil, if I'm not wrong. And basically what you do, you make a cutting, and as you can see, the roots, yeah, the roots coming out of here, and you just plunge it into a clear jar that has water, and with time you begin to see more roots coming out of this particular plant. And once the roots come out, I'm just trying to look for one that has actually these roots. Once you put it in water, right? Once you make a cutting, put it in water in a clear jar, and then watch as your roots begin to just, I don't know whether this will be able to focus. You can see a root. Should I tilt it? There's some roots. This is a root, this one, that's a root. There are other roots here, and this is a root. The white little things that you can see. So make a cutting, put it in water, let it root out. The roots become longer. You pick your mother plant and, you know, just plant this particular cutting back into the mother plant, and then you're able to have as big of a plant as you can see this, you know. So that is how you grow your Marantas or prayer plants. As I was talking about Marantas, what came to mind is a number of questions that people get to ask on. One, how do you take care of a prayer plant? What are the lighting conditions that it requires? What kind of water do you use? And, you know, how often or how regular do you water the plant? Let me start with watering. They require a sizable amount of watering, so basically you have to keep the soil moist. I've seen a lot of people talk about using distilled water or filtered water for their Marantas, because as far as I'm concerned, most people do not like the tips of their leaves looking like mine. If you can see, there's this tip here, it looks like it's dry, but I don't. Personally, I just use tap water, because unless with time I'm able to get rainwater, that I think a lot of plants like, because most of these plants either way come from, you know, the wild or the forest one time or another, before they became, of course, commercialized and, you know, began to be developed within nurseries and all that. That's my belief, that rainwater could be something to look at. But personally, I use tap water. Number two, in terms of lighting, my house is quite dark because I do not have as many east facing or east facing or north facing windows, I think. And there's a building just adjacent to our apartment, so there's a lot of light that is blocked most of the times. So we have like 5 hours of bright light, but it seems to do well. All these places where I've placed it seems to do well. But right now it currently lives on my windowsill, which is east facing window, and it's doing fine. As I said, I make sure that my soil is moist. Then in terms of temperature, in Nairobi, temperatures don't go below 17. So, and the plant seems to do well. But out of fact, it basically does very well in humid areas or in a place that has high humidity. And for people in a very cold place, that's why they're encouraged to actually get a humidifier. For me, I've not seen the need of a humidifier at the moment because, as I said, I live in Nairobi. It's sunny throughout the year and cold between the months of June and July. And when I mean cold, not below 17 or below 14. You know, if it goes below that, then it's an extreme weather for, that is extreme weather for Nairobi. Let's jump to another plant, and that is the Kalanchoe. In one of my previous video, I talked about my Kalanchoe, or some of the people call it Kalanchoe, and I got mine from a shop in Yaya Center, again for those in Nairobi, and it basically was doing well until I realized that the stem was rotting, and I had to make cuttings out of it, leaf cuttings, branch cuttings, and read about how to propagate a Kalanchoe. Now, that I did successfully, and I did that also and mentioned in one of my videos. And then because I realized, because of the temperatures in my house, they required to dry out, and they were not drying out. The soil was not drying out inside my house, so I took them outside, and then slugs, of course, you know, began to be a problem. So they ate most of my Kalanchoes, and guess what? This is the one that is left. I've had to remove it from the soil. It flowered actually, as you can see over here in this video, and it had, you know, started to flower. The flowers have just died out a couple of days ago, but I've removed it from the soil and decided to take back into the propagating jar that I used last time. Basically put water, these are the roots, put water and just put my plant so that it can begin to have more plants around it. This time round, when I replant this propagation, I'll put it in soil that is well mixed with either perlite or something, whatever I get, granite or what I'm going to get, and I'll have to mix that with a bit of charcoal as well, and then compost, and then I'll replant this in a pot and purposely keep it near the window, because that is the only place that gets enough light, and the plant won't be soggy and the stem won't start rotting again. This is the only Kalanchoe that so far I've saved successfully. I've seen one leaf, I had cut out one leaf and thrown it in my garden outside here where some of my plants are, and I realized that leaf has roots, so it seems to be doing well outside. Once it begins to have fewer more leaves, I will move it inside as well. Yeah, but again, how to propagate a Kalanchoe or a Kalanchoe? Just put it in water, make a stem cutting and put it in water in a clear jar and put it in a lighted area like a windowsill. It will be perfect. It will have roots, as you can see. Ignore these are like still soil particles, but I washed out the roots, but those ones still remain there. And then you let it even flowers, even when put in water. I've seen it flower before. Absolutely amazing. Before I jump into one of my favorite propagates of 2020, I wanted to talk about succulents and how you can propagate them. This is the succulent, one of the succulents that I have. I have many of these, and again, I did a video where this plant looked very healthy, very nice, and you know, a little bit fleshy and all that. Now, because I keep this purposely on the windowsill as well, where it receives a lot of light, it's beginning to just look more of a, you know, a cactus, yeah, you know, thin and all that, but it's absolutely beautiful. I'll have to put the name on the description because I can't remember the name of this particular succulent, but what I know is that it's an easy to care for succulent, like most of the succulents that I've come across. And the benefit of keeping these is that you don't water them often, and also you can actually propagate from the mother plant, and basically small babies like this one begin to form at the base of your mother plant, and then you just remove them and put them in separate smaller pots. Sometimes there are very many. I got a lot of these. Some died because I noticed that this particular plant does not like a very cold area or a very cold room. So if your house has less lighting, it's best to move this near a window or water it very little, with very little water, once, not even once a month, even once in 2 months, because it just likes dry conditions. It likes the cacti soil mix. That's what it likes. But as for me, when it was starting out to die and the leaves, you know, become soggy and fall out because they absorbed so much water and moisture from the air, I changed also the soil. So I mixed a bit of the cacti mix with some compost to give it, you know, a bit of base, and replanted it into this pot and put it near the window. So again, an easy plant to propagate. As I said, I have a couple of these. You can even decide to put it in a pot that doesn't have a hole, but again, as I said, you water it sparingly, very little water, and then you still get to have, you know, a mini plant. And as they grow, they begin to just take shape like this one. But you can have as many plants, you know, baby plants from this particular plant. And that's how you grow your, you know, plant collection. You don't have to keep buying plants all the time or have a budget for plants all the time. Now folks, let's move to my favorite plant to propagate. Not so long ago, I did this propagation around midnight. I was just bored and in the house, and I had not looked at my plants for a while, and I thought, let me see how they're doing. So you'll see on this photo that I'm putting somewhere either on the right or on the left, I'm holding something on my hand, so yeah, I can't point. You'll see that it's a big plant. I didn't mention in my previous video that it's a plant that both of these, actually not both, but the 3 plants that I have of this type of plant generally stay outside. The variegated versions, because I noted the white areas tend to become dark when I put them inside. The white variegated version just becomes black, and that's because, of course, there's no chlorophyll being produced, and that is why the plant takes that particular, you know, option to just begin to die. So which plant is this? The Monstera Deliciosa. So the Monstera Deliciosa is a very common plant, house plant, especially the green one. Now, it is a plant that most house enthusiasts, most indoor plants enthusiasts love to keep. The baby green ones are absolutely cute. Then they grow and they begin to be so, they just become monster plants in a couple of months. So I have the green, which is the Monstera Deliciosa. Then I have the variegated version of that big one, and a smaller version which is called the Thai Constellation. So let's first talk about the Thai Constellation. So the Thai Constellation is a smaller version of the Monstera. As you can see, that's a Monstera here. Then this is a smaller version of it. So what have I done? I went to the mother plant. It was still growing upwards, and I felt like I missed planting something. And because I'm not bought plants this month, I decided I need to propagate something. And with the failures that I've done with my African violet, what other fails? The Kalanchoe, which other plant? My peperomias, no, not peperomia, my Fitunia that died. And by the way, I've had to take it back to the greenhouse. So I decided I want to grow something. And I went outside, looked through my plants and said, these are overgrown. Sorry, my battery died, so I had to change it. So the Thai Constellation is the smaller version of the Monstera Deliciosa. So you make cuttings from the mother plant. Should look like this. Yeah. So you make cuttings, and basically what you're seeing here, those are the roots. That's a root, that's a root, that's a root. The mother plant is on a pole, a moss pole. That's why there are a bit of these hanging things there. But you can see there is also a root. I don't know. This is a root. This one. So you again recycle some of those jars, honey jars, jam jars, and use them to propagate your plants. Then just put it in water, and voila. Yeah, you put it in water and you create a new plant. So once it begins to root out, I'll transfer this particular plant into a pot, a terracotta pot, of course. Yeah, so that's it. This is a Thai Constellation. Absolutely beautiful, smaller leaves, and very nice. The second type of Monstera is the bigger version. It's a Variegata. So I have to find the name. I just usually call it Variegated Monstera, but I need to check for the scientific name, perhaps for reference purposes. But this is it. Look at how big that plant is. Yeah, are you seeing it? Absolutely big. So again, I did some cuttings. I just went to the mother plant that I bought not so long ago, got this, trimmed the roots because there are too many and too long, and again found a jar, and voila, I have a new plant. So this is it. Absolutely beautiful. So I would say this, the Monsteras are the easiest plants to propagate. These and some of the succulents that I've shared with, but a Monstera still remains the king of the plant world because it's easy to take care of, it's easy to propagate, and it's not likely to die on you if you give it the right conditions, of course. So once this begins to root out nicely, then I'll put it in a pot. Now, what I said about how to take care of them, just make sure they have enough light, because then the white areas, they begin to darken if they do not get enough light. And that's because, as you can see, a white part of a plant means that it's not producing chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is basically, that what creates the green, and that makes plant food basically. So it means it's not having, in plant food, and it doesn't survive low light situations. So anywhere near a window or the sun, it's doing well, and I keep them outside actually. The propagations though, I put them near a window. So guys, that's all with my nice heart and my plans. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's continue to talk about plans. Let's talk about things that contribute towards ecology, things that contribute towards taking care of the environment, and also making sure that they push us towards a green future, a green world, because we have to begin from our houses before we start going to say, I'm going to plant 1,000,000 trees, and you don't even have one plant in your house. That's just my notion, that's just my opinion. So thank you so much, guys. In the next video, I'll be talking about something different. Maybe I'll be going to do a plant haul. Guess where? On the streets of Nairobi. You can find some very good plants, by the way. Very, very good plants, and cheap. So join me next time. For now, bye-bye. Dun, 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 dun.